speech in which you admitted for the first time that Ireland's economic crisis was due not just to the international recession but to failures of your own Fianna Fail government. And when one wades through the grammatical constructs that you used to distance yourself from all of that, you appear to be saying that somebody somewhere should have done something earlier, but that you yourself weren't to blame for it because nobody told you what was happening or what was coming down the track. And specifically, you mentioned independent commentators, that they hadn't alerted you to the problem. Now, Taoiseach, I've been going back over that record, and I find that in August 2003, the IMF warned that Irish house prices were overvalued and that there were risks to the financial sector from investor-owned housing and commercial property market. In September 2004, the IMF again warned of the potential for what they called a disorderly correction. Many of us probably didn't know what a disorderly correction was at that time, but we certainly do now, and indeed they spelt it out. The 50% of the bank's loan portfolio concentrated in property. It would lead to a protracted period of slow private consumption and investment. Construction sector would suffer sizable output and employment losses, and that there would be protracted slowdown in consumption growth. In November 2005, the OECD said that Irish house prices were overvalued by 15% and that there was a speculative element to Irish property prices. In December 2006, Professor Morgan Kelly, in an article in the Irish Times, predicted what was going to happen and drew attention to what had happened in Finland and the Netherlands. In March 2006, Davy stockbrokers drew attention to the fact that house prices in Dublin were 100 times the rents being earned and that only boundless optimism would sustain it. And in April 2007, the RTE primetime programme Future Shock warned of the danger of property price collapse. Now, if you didn't hear all of that, Taoiseach, your predecessor did, because he described it, Deputy Bertie Ahern, as people sitting on the sidelines, cribbing and moaning as a lost opportunity, and I don't know how the people engaged in that don't commit suicide. So, Taoiseach, my question to you this morning is, do you accept that you were told and that the problem was not that you didn't get the advice, but that you didn't act on it?
Without interruption, please, Deputy Gilmore. Without interruption.
You see, it's bad enough, Can Corla, that the Taoiseach, both in his capacity as Taoiseach and in his capacity as Minister for Finance, and his Fianna Fail government have ruined the Irish economy. But it is really adding insult to injury to come around and to say you had nothing to do with it, that it was all somebody else's fault, that you either weren't advised or that somebody else proposed things or whatever. The fact of the matter is you were in government for the last 13 years and you must take responsibility for what has happened. And it is doing a grave injustice to all of those people who have suffered severely as a result of what you have done to come around with this kind of self-justification that you engaged in last Thursday. The record will show that over the years, the Labour Party in particular identified various actions that should have been taken by government, which weren't taken. The stamp duty proposal, in fact, came from your side of the House. It was the former Minister Michael McDowell who proposed that stamp duty. The stamp duty should be abolished. It is a serious rewriting of history to suggest that it was coming from somewhere else. The truth of the matter, Taoiseach, is that at the end of the day, you didn't listen. You got the warnings. You got the warnings about what was happening in the property market. You got the warnings about the consequences of light regulation. I have another item here at the New York Times as far back as 2005 was describing the Irish financial sector as the Wild West of the financial sector and drawing attention to the fact that you and your government were trumpeting the fact that there was light regulation at that time. Well, now we know where that has ended up. So the bottom line, Taoiseach, is that you didn't listen to the warnings, you didn't do enough, you didn't take action. You described it, Taoiseach. You described it last Thursday as a stunning failure of corporate governance. It was a stunning failure, Taoiseach. It was a stunning failure of government and a stunning failure particularly by yourself, because you were the guy in charge as Minister for Finance during all of that period of time.